Hello, here's some of my tips for tackling insomnia. So we have to acknowledge that everyone has different needs when it comes to sleep. So just like with everything else, everyone is completely different. You might find that your friend functions really well on 6 hours sleep, whereas you feel like an absolute zombie unless you get 8 or more. So it's very different depending on you as an individual, how much activity you're doing during the day, and also about your age. So children and teenagers tend to need more sleep. Adults is recommended about 7 hours, but obviously it could be different. And elderly people, depending on activity levels, tend to need a bit less. So definitely keep that in mind, as with everything else, sleep is very individual. Tip 1 is try to limit your caffeine intake throughout the day, especially in the hours leading up to your bedtime. So this is teas, coffees, energy drinks. If you really can't depart with them in later hours during the day, go for decaf. A lot of people they can drink coffee into the night and still sleep like a baby. So again, it depends on your sensitivity to caffeine. If it's something that you feel could be affecting it, why not give it a go, limit it a little bit and see if that makes a difference over time. So 2 is foster an environment in your bedroom as one of sleep. So it can be quite difficult because you watch TV, you have your phone, it's quite natural, it's what many people do right before sleep. But a lot of people recommend at least an hour before sleep, be quite strict with yourself and say, right, I'm going to turn the TV off, I'm going to put my phone down on the side, make sure my alarm is set and everything, and just leave it, and instead read a book and do something that doesn't have that sort of screen light that will trick our brains into feeling that, I should be awake, there's light around. So, it can also help if you have curtains, blackout blinds, stuff like that, to limit the amount of light that comes into your room when you don't want it to come into your room, especially if you're very light sensitive when you're sleeping. Tip 3 is make sure you're doing enough activity throughout the day to expend your energy. This is one that I definitely have a problem with because I'm lazy. I tend to suffer with insomnia when I have a long period of work, such as summer holidays, because I'm not really doing anything physically or mentally to really make myself tired enough to sleep well at night. So make sure that you are getting out, you are sort of moving around. You don't have to go to the gym or anything like that, but just make sure you are keeping active enough to use up that energy to make sure when you get into bed at night, you're tired enough to sleep. This can really help. Make sure you are kind of getting into a good sleeping pattern and having a consistent time of going to bed and getting up every morning. Now, if you feel like you want to go to bed at 11, you will need to obviously be quite strict with yourself and make sure you are getting to bed at 11. If you really can't sleep this early, then I would suggest every night scaling back about 15 minutes from the time that you are going to sleep, and getting into bed maybe about 1 o'clock in the morning, say 15 minutes every night till you get to 11, and stick with it. And this is sort of like a time where you need to treat yourself as if you are your own parent, and you're talking to a naughty child that won't stick to their bedtime. It can be really easy as an adult because we have no enforcers, obviously, apart from ourselves, to sort of get into bad habits and ones that really destroy our health, because we have sort of no one watching over us like a parent. So we sort of have to be our own disciplinarian in that sense. So that's definitely something worth doing. Also, to get up at around the same time every day. Now, I understand if you're getting up for work at 6 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning on your day off. But I just mean try not to sleep in until the afternoon every weekend, because your body will find it harder to become adjusted to back into that time of getting up at 6 o'clock. So sleep in, but not too much, is basically what I'm trying to say. And hopefully that will help your body get into a sort of rhythm of like, okay, this is when I sleep, this is when I get up, and it will naturally sort of relax and wake up at that time. Now, I am very bad at this myself. I get into a lot of bad habits when I have time off work, and I end up suffering for it every time. So I definitely know it's not easy. The next tip would be try and use things like lavender and other essential oils that promote sleeping. This may not work for everyone, and I am quite a skeptic on this myself, but I do understand that it will help you relax, so why not give it a go? Lately I've been using this Sleepy moisturiser from Lush, and it has a lot of lavender in it, which helps, you put it on before bed and you will get that fragrance of lavender, will help you just sort of get into a mode of sleepiness and help you drift off, allegedly. I have found it quite nice and just helpful to be put in my bedtime routine, and it does help me relax quite a bit, so why not give it a go and have a bit of an open mind. And the last tip I want to say is try to have a wind down period. So it's no use, being stressed and then trying to get into bed and go straight to sleep. You need to have about perhaps an hour or so where you are simply devoting yourself to sleep. So this could be getting into your pajamas, maybe having a long bath, and just sitting there quietly watching TV, reading a book, having a nice time where you can just not think about the stresses of the day. Another good little thing that I find helpful to do during this time is to write down all my worries or all the things I need to remember on paper or on a whiteboard that I have in my room. This helps me personally to get all the information out of my head and down onto paper, so I can mentally think, okay, that's out of my head now. I don't have to consider it. It doesn't have to whirl around in my head constantly keeping me awake. I can just have it on paper and I can deal with it in the morning when I'm awake. I find this really helpful, and even the most trivial little things I will write down on paper sometimes just to get it out of my head. You might want to do it in little notes on your phone, perhaps even record your voice. It can really help, especially if you're an overthinker like I am. So that's all my tips for today, and I really hope that this helps you sleep well and get a good restful sleep. I must also emphasise though, if you are still not sleeping very well and it's really affecting your life, even after trying everything that you feel you can try, please go and see your GP, because it's a more serious problem and you deserve to have as good night's sleep as you can get. So insomnia can be a very debilitating condition, and it really does adversely affect your life. Don't suffer through it. Go to the doctor and see your options if you really are struggling. That's that for today, so I hope you enjoyed it and sleep well.